If you've been around for a while, then you know how much I care about financial freedom for all. One thing that often gets in the way of that is debt. That's why I'm happy to announce that I've partnered with an amazing organization called Juno. Juno helps you get lower interest rates by using the power of group negotiation. It is a completely free resource that you can use to secure lower interest rates on new and existing student loans. Head to the link in the episode show notes to find out more. This is the Dreamers Podcast, episode 55, with real estate investor and stock trader Rob and Reshawn Lee. Today is February 1st, 2022.
Focus on increasing your income as much as possible.
Yes.
You can definitely pay down debt, but increasing your income helps you to get there so much faster.
Yeah. It's just temporary.
However you do that, either through investing in real estate in the stock market, but if you can, keep asking for raises.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why not? All they can say is no. And keep your LinkedIn profile up to date if you are working a W-2 job, because there are always opportunities to move around. And every time you move, that's a bigger chance to get an increase.
Hello, world. Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I am Stephanie Anne-Lyse, also known as Anne-Lyse Wealth. I'm a financial coach and an author. I self-published my first book, Dream of Legacy, a guide to help dreamers reach financial independence and build generational wealth. In this podcast, I'll have conversations with experts and thought leaders who dare to follow their dreams. You'll hear about their journey and their money stories. I hope it inspires you, dreamers out there, to live life on your own terms.
Come on, dreamers, let's change the world!
This podcast is brought to you by Dream of Legacy. Check out dreamoflegacy.com for resources to assist you on your journey to financial independence. Before we get into today's episode, please take a couple minutes to go into Apple Podcasts if you're listening from an Apple device, to rate and review the podcast. If you appreciate the free resources that are provided in this podcast, then the best way to let me know is to do just that. Reviews help the podcast be more visible, and it helps other dreamers discover the podcast. So thank you. I appreciate you. And now let's get back to today's episode. Hello, welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I'm your host, Anne-Lyse Wealth. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Dreamers Podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Rob and Reshawn Lee. Together, they had great jobs, earning multiple six figures. And in their 40s, they decided to quit their jobs and travel the world. So they paid off their $300,000 mortgage in 5 years and traveled to 23 countries and 35 cities in 1 year. We talk about their journey from leaving their corporate jobs to pursue their entrepreneurial passions and travel the world. How they changed their money mindset to pay off a ton of debt and become real estate investors. Rob and Reshawn, welcome to the Dreamers Podcast.
Hello.
Thanks for having us, Anne-Lyse.
Oh, thank you for being here. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about you and what you do?
Oh, wow. Okay. So let's see. We are Rob and Reshawn Lee. We've been married for almost 13 years. And our anniversary is in April. We have two boys who are 26 and 21. And our marriage was the beginning of our debt-free journey.
Yeah.
I was on a path actually for debt freedom myself, but hadn't really begun to save or invest significantly outside of my retirement account. And Rob had a plan to become a real estate mogul.
Yes.
So when we met and combined forces, that pretty much changed our lives, understanding financial independence. So we left our corporate jobs in 2018. We traveled the world in 2019 and returned just in time for the pandemic. And today, Rob is a full-time licensed Texas realtor, and I am a full-time stock trader.
Yeah, doing what we want to do.
And so you guys paid off $300,000 of debt in 5 years?
Okay, so the house alone was $300,000.
Right.
So this is the house that we live in now, and we did pay that mortgage off in 5 years. That was a blessing.
So there's more than $300,000.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because we both came to the marriage having been college students, first generation college students. So we didn't know anything about debt. And we certainly got pulled in by the credit card people who were giving away free candy bars and sodas and pizza to sign up for a credit card.
I was in the military at high school. So in the military, once they realized you're in the military, they started sending you credit cards. Discover sent me the first one. Visa, everybody started sending credit cards. And being that I wasn't from any kind of money background, I started maxing those things out and thinking, I can just make this minimum payment. And I lost it. After a while.
Yeah. So we both racked up credit card debt and student loan debt and became parents in our 20s.
Yes.
So we had all the financial responsibilities.
Yeah.
And so combined, how much debt did you guys pay off?
Wow. I know I had school loans when we met. That was about, how much was about 25 left, something like that?
Something like that. 25
left. And then we had cars. We both still had cars. Yours was close to being paid off.
Yeah, my car note was close to being paid off.
Mine had a couple more years.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, no one's ever asked us the total, huh?
So I guess you could probably say close to 400,000 if you count the house.
Yeah.
Wow. And so for anyone listening who might be in a situation where they have a lot of debt, what are some of the tips that you can share that have helped you on your debt payoff journey?
I'm going to say one of the things I've observed probably since we got where we are today is don't accept the current circumstance.
Right.
We see that a lot. The status quo, it is what it is. You're always going to have debt.
Yeah.
We started with Dave Ramsey, and that's why Rob was going there. But the idea that, being debt-free or being financially independent is not for me. We see that so much. Fear is a powerful emotion, and we just see so many people get trapped in the current space that they can't even visualize themselves somewhere else doing something different.
And I kind of had that mindset in the beginning. I really just thought, I was from a background where all I saw just broke people. I've never been around anybody with money. I haven't been around anybody even talking about having a career to pay off your debt. And where I'm from, people weren't even really going to college. I joined the military because I was just trying to find a way out, and I learned and evolved over time.
So I'm curious to hear what made you change that mindset? What made you think that you could get out of debt and live the life that you're living now?
Well, for one, my wife, when I met her, so I was already trying to pay off bills, and I had so many charge-offs and stuff when we met that I had paid off. I got rid of 12 of them. It was embarrassing. I didn't want to be out here dating and saying, hey, because I started hearing just floating around, hey, maybe people should start talking about credit and people should start seeing what people bring to the table. And as I got older, in my 30s, I was like, man, I got to get it together. How am I going to be out here trying to meet a nice young lady and expect things from her, and I don't have myself together? So I saw she was a little ahead of me. She still had a few bills here and there, but she just looking at what she was doing. And then I was reading Susie Orman back in the day, I had a college best friend, and he was saying he didn't have any bills. And I was like, wow, he's from Jamaica. He's my best buddy. And he lives here now in Texas. And he was a great example. And he didn't have much. He got here when he was 14. His mother brought him here, and he made his way. Just all those people around me and just trying to get more educated. It really changed that.
And so you guys had I don't know if it was $300,000, the initial balance of your mortgage, or what you had left to pay. And you had a 15-year mortgage, right?
Yeah. So we had a 15-year mortgage. We actually started with 10% down.
Yeah.
And I had always invested in my 401k. And Rob had begun investing in his as well when we met. So retirement was where we started investing initially. It's probably where everybody starts investing for your retirement. After we got married, Rob shared his vision or dreams or goals about investing in real estate. I was a bit hesitant when we started out because I was like, okay, so we only dated for 6 months before he proposed. We were engaged for 1 year before we got married. Not even a full year, 8 months.
Yeah.
So we were definitely still getting to know each other early on in the marriage. And I was like, well, let's look at some financial information first before we go down that road of the real estate thing. I kind of was brushing that off. And we'd actually had a plan to keep our finances separate initially. I had a spreadsheet. We were going to pay all these percentages and everything. And at least I was not trying to go back to broke. And I was like, this guy's a spender.
I understand.
And so we'd gone to church, and the message was on the topic of two shall become one. He heard the message, and we both heard the message. God speaks to people differently at different times, and we don't always hear the same exact message. we got home, he shared with me the way he heard the message, which was that our finances seemed to be set up like roommates and not like a married couple, that we had not joined our finances. And this was early on. We got married at the end of April. So this must have been May. I'm telling you, God works fast because I was like, okay, well, let me have some time to pray on this. And that didn't go over well, but he accepted it. He was like, okay, you can have some time. I went back to work, and my manager at the time shared that he had been on the Dave Ramsey beans and rice diet. And I was like, what are you talking about? He told me about the Dave Ramsey Total Money Makeover, because he had gone to law school. Now, he was in sales, but he had a law degree and it racked up all this debt. After he learned of the Total Money Makeover, he and his wife paid this off. And so I talked to Rob about it, and he said, sure, let's do this. Let's do this Total Money Makeover thing and see where it takes us.
Audiobook,
Yeah. And we blazed through that.
Yes, it was so good. I mean, even though I just felt like it was a lot of knowledge in there, things I had never heard of. And he was talking about how there's so many people in the Joneses, and everybody's trying to top everybody else and get a new car, just like their friend or their neighbor or their sister or whoever. And he made it sound like you were just being so stupid. And I needed that. I was like, man, these guys are right. I mean, we all always trying to be fly. Everybody want to be fly, right? And showing off. He said, we do all these things for other people. When you really think about it, all this is to show off. And especially if you don't have it, we blazed through it was like a 3-4 CD.
We finished it in a few weeks.
It was a week.
Because we actually I know we had our finances joined by June of that same year. So once we got on page with our finances, that made it easier to have that conversation about investing in real estate. And I eventually softened and became more receptive. So we married in 2009. And then by 2013, the market had started to turn, but we had paid off his student loans. We were looking good. Everything was in good shape. And he had been listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast. So this was really him pulling me along. I was more focused on the debt part, and then he was more focused on the investing part. So it was great to have those two mindsets, because I can tell you that while Dave offers some amazing information for people who are focused on debt, it doesn't really go far enough as far as investing and building wealth. So I think he's a great place to start, and we will always be grateful for what we got from him.
If you're in debt, yes.
Yeah, and we shared his CD with so many people.
Yes.
We bought so many
10
copies.
of them and gave them out to people we thought needed them the most.
And we've taken our copy and given it to people and got
12.
it back. Yeah, so we continue to share that. But now when it came to investing in real estate in 2013, we had gone out to look for our first property and found that prices had started to go up. But interest rates were great at the time.
Right.
So we actually ended up turning our first home into our first rental, and we purchased this house.
And we moved
so
up,
that brings us full circle back to purchasing this house with 10% down. This was our second home purchase ever. And we had the 15-year mortgage. In the first 5 years, because it was only a 15-year mortgage, we'd already paid off $100,000.
Right.
So what made you say, hey, you know what? We should just pay this off in 5 years. What made you pay off your mortgage?
So we continued to buy real estate, and we had purchased one property a year for the first 5 or 6 years after we started, because he wanted to purchase more. One a year was what I could commit to as far as my risk tolerance was concerned. And both of our kids were scheduled to graduate, the youngest from high school and the oldest from college in 2018. And we were like, oh, wait a minute. At this point, we had 5 investment properties and a nice chunk of money invested in our retirement accounts. And we had a brokerage account, a taxable brokerage account that had a 6-figure balance. We were like, we always talked about traveling.
Yeah, what are we going to do when these kids leave? Because people don't think about that. We were like, wow, the boys are almost out of here. The youngest is almost graduating, and we don't have to have them all the time. And
it was the prospect of what we could do if we didn't have the mortgage that caused us to pay it off.
That's what we thought about. Yeah.
We looked at our investment vehicles. And that's one of the things a lot of people are like, oh, you can't do anything with one rental property. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
You don't have to have 100 rental properties to retire.
No.
You can do so much with real estate once you understand all the vehicles that are available to you. And I think a lot of people never get past being landlords of that first property, especially if they don't have a property manager and they're the ones taking the calls about the broken toilets and the trash that hasn't been taken out, what have you. We've always had property managers. That's crucial for us. But we realized through listening to Bigger Pockets that we could do what's called a cash out refinance. We owned, like I said, multiple properties, and they all had 15-year mortgages on them. The value had increased significantly, and the tenants were paying everything. They were paying the mortgage, the insurance, the taxes, and covering the property manager expenses. Once we realized we could do the cash out refinance, we used that as a vehicle to pull out $150,000
something like that
out of our rental property and pay it on the $200,000 balance that we had left on this house.
We had a really big, it was a big chunk of mortgage every month. And we were like, wow, if we could just get rid of this money. I mean, it's a chunk of money we got to put down.
$2,600 a month.
Yeah. But if we could get rid of that, we would save so much on interest, because interest for the next 10 years, that's a chunk of money.
And even if you didn't think of it that way, right? We're one, but we're two different people. And I didn't think that their interest was
because it was a low interest rate.
Significant because it was a low interest rate.
That's right.
What was it? Do you remember?
It was like 2.8. Yeah, it was low.
It was low.
Okay.
But what it was is that I knew that we wanted to leave, that if we could do this, we could be without a mortgage, we could leave our job.
Yes, that was the biggest thing. Yeah.
Our mortgage was nothing based on having 6-figure income.
Yeah. As long as we were working,
once
right?
you decide, right, exactly. But once you decide to leave your job, you really need to bring down your living expenses significantly. Right. And if we spent the year traveling and came back, what would it take for us to get back on our feet and, create an income?
That's what it was.
To be able to sustain ourselves.
So by the time you guys left your corporate jobs, how many properties did you have?
Okay, let me wrap up the payoff for you, because somebody's going to listen to this and say they had a $200,000 balance and she said they pulled $150,000 from a rental property. Now, that was a paid off rental property, by the way. For the cash out refi, there's something like an 80-20 rule. So you can only take out 80% loan to value. So we took out the $150,000 off of a paid off rental, and that mortgage everything's still being paid off by the tenants 100%. And we took $50,000 from our 6-figure brokerage account.
Yes.
And that's how we paid off this mortgage.
Right.
Okay. In the 5 years before we left. So we had about 4 or 5 rental properties back in 2018. And what we did was we sold 2 of those properties.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
One of the properties actually had some foundation problems, and we put significant money into fixing it up. We knew that we could make a profit on it and be rid of it. When it's a seller's market, definitely take advantage of the opportunity to get rid of any properties that are causing problems. Right. So we made a nice profit on that. We'd held it for 3 years and made a very nice profit.
You got to know when to sell.
We got back double what we put into that property in a 3-year time frame. Then we sold off a small property that we just didn't think would appreciate a lot more than what it was at the time in which we sold.
It was only 1,000 square feet. Yeah,
it was pretty small compared to what we were accustomed to having as rental properties. So we sold off those 2. Yeah. Okay, so at that point we had 4 rentals then in our primary residence. We sold off those 2. And we took the profits from one of the properties, the foundation problem property, and rolled it into a 6-unit.
Yeah, 1031 exchange.
Yes, exactly. A small multifamily property in Virginia, because Rob is from Virginia. Right. I'm from Chicago. And we're saying state and city because Chicago's so big. It's like a whole state. So I'm from Chicago, Illinois. Let me say that right. And he's from the Portsmouth, Virginia area. And so we rolled that money into a 6-unit in Norfolk, Virginia.
Near the naval base.
Right, near the naval base. We'd done all of our research in that area and thought it would appreciate successfully. And so by the time we left corporate, we had 8 units.
So Rob mentioned the 1031 exchange. Do you mind explaining what it is for some of our listeners that might not be familiar?
So 1031 exchange is just a program where if you are going to sell a house, you can delay taxes indefinitely if you keep doing it right. For example, we took the house, we sold it, and if you're you got to contact a 1031 exchange company, and then you got to work with them. And what happens is you have a certain time frame that you have to, once you sell the house, you got to be buying a new one. It's got to be larger and more expensive. Is it larger and more expensive? Larger and more expensive than the house that you got rid of. So you got to be kind of moving up. And that's why some people go from single family houses to bigger single family or multis or commercial. It's just a program you do that. And
it's available. It's an IRS program. It's an incentive that the government is giving you to continue investing.
Yes. And that way you don't get hit by that huge tax bill. You can do this until you die. You can do it with land. You can do it with, and it just has to be like for like. When you look it up on IRS.gov, look up 1031 exchange. Yes.
So tell me about that conversation, that first conversation, because you guys both had 6-figure jobs. Tell me about that conversation. Like, let's quit our jobs and travel the world.
So let me clarify.
Both on board?
We made multiple 6 figures together.
Yeah.
We didn't both have 6-figure jobs.
I wasn't quite 6 figures. I wasn't quite there.
So when it came time to quit the job, I was ready to quit first because honestly, I had been a single mom when we met. Our oldest was 12, my son by birth, and he had been my motivation for doing a lot of things. I graduated from college, 6-7 months pregnant. I started working when he was about 3 months old, and I took a sales job because I knew that I needed to be able to leverage my income and maximize what I could earn in order to take care of him. So I'd been in a stressful sales role for over 20 years. And so once he was graduating from college, I pretty much couldn't imagine continuing on that path.
You didn't seem like you were really running from it.
No, I was just done. I was running from it.
No, I'm saying, I don't remember you just like wanting to quit. She was kind of breaking down though. I could see they were working her really, really hard. What I remember first is you moved and you went from one company. Yeah, she changed companies, and that's when I knew she was getting kind of sick from just being worked to death. And then she changed companies. I could kind of see it in the horizon. It's coming. This is not going to be good eventually. And we were already talking about, hey, our big dream was at first when we first started. Remember, we used to joke when we were in the first little house saying, hey, we should just pay off this house, pay off this house, and go work at Starbucks. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to just get Starbucks jobs.
It's not as easy to get a Starbucks job as I thought it was going to be.
They denied her.
Anne-Lyse, how come I went online and applied and they would not hire you, girl? Education and experience, and they were like, ignore.
She overqualified.
Me. I was like, what is up?
So yeah, we used to joke and say, hey, we're going to pay off the small house and we're going to just go work at Starbucks. And that way, if you pay off the mortgage and the cars, we'd had no car notes in 11 years.
Since 2010?
Yeah, since 2010. We had already had no car notes when we bought our new cars, and they were fairly a couple of years old. Let somebody else take the hit. And then we said, hey, we're going to quit our jobs after we pay off this house, and then we're going to work at Starbucks. But then what happened was when we saw the opportunity to get into real estate, and I was thinking, wow, there's money to be made in this, and we can still do the same plan eventually, just buy some real estate, and that way we can have more money coming in instead of just having to work at the Starbucks or whatever little gig we were trying to do. Just think about that. If you got the houses and you got the houses paying you got cash flow coming in, and then you got no bills or very low bills. And that's why we end up moving and getting more real estate with the same plan.
I will say the tip for anybody who's listening, focus on increasing your income as much as possible.
Yes.
You can definitely pay down debt, but increasing your income helps you to get there so much faster.
Yeah. It's just temporary.
However you do that, either through investing in real estate in the stock market, but if you can, keep asking for raises.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why not? All they can say is no. And keep your LinkedIn profile up to date if you are working a W-2 job, because there are always opportunities to move around. And every time you move, that's a bigger chance to get an increase. So when it came time for us to quit, I wanted to quit first. He was actually supposed to work for another couple years, Anne-Lyse, but I'm married to a hater. We gonna keep it 100 with you. He was like, no, if you quit, I want to quit. I was like, but why?
Yeah, I sure did.
It's like, I'm older than you. I have been working longer than you.
Like a year.
I'm 3 years older than him. What is the year?
So
I've been working longer than him. He didn't even go to the military until he was 19. I went at 17. We're both veterans. I turned 18 in basic training. Ooh, it's a horrible way to spend your 18th birthday, guys. But anyway, he wanted to quit once I decided to quit. Yeah. That's pretty much what landed us in the home.
Yeah. I forgot. Yeah.
Where let's go ahead and travel thing.
Yeah. We had already had, that was our biggest dream of all time. We had a goal at 55. About 55, we're going to see if we can travel the world for a whole year. And then what happened was once the boys were leaving and we were paying off the house and stuff, we were like, wow, this is a good opportunity. And then she kind of came to me and said, hey, what do you think about just doing this now? And I was like,
yeah, once he started saying he was going to quit too, I was like, well, we need to maximize this time if you quitting too.
Yeah. So then
we might as well.
Yeah, that's what she said. Yeah.
We might as well go ahead and travel now if we both going to be out of work.
Take the whole year off and travel and then
join in the land of the unemployed.
Yeah.
But
so how old were you guys when you finally went on this 1 year travel journey?
So when we left in 2018, we left the end of 2018. How old were you?
Oh, okay. Well,
that was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So he was 43,
46,
and I would have been 46.
Yeah. Oh, so almost 10 years ahead of the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so what's the most beautiful place, or what was your best experience?
We got different opinions.
Two shall become one. We have different experiences everywhere we go.
Yes. I mean, it all depends on what you're looking for. It was, listen, we're going to be honest.
Your favorite place? Answer our question.
Okay. My favorite place was Iceland. It was Cape Town, South Africa first, and then Iceland, not Cape Town, to number 2 spot.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we visited 6 continents, 23 countries.
Yes.
And I want to say it had to be almost 50 cities because we couldn't keep track of all of them. And our first stop was Argentina.
Oh, yeah.
And I really loved El Calafate, Patagonia, the icebergs.
Yes.
I really loved that experience of walking on ice. One of our very first experiences, we were still fresh. And that was something I just had not imagined doing or even being able to do, to travel to the icebergs.
Yeah,
when people see those pictures today, they think they're fake.
Yeah, they don't believe us. Yeah.
People think we just photoshopped ourselves onto an iceberg. That's how amazing it looks.
We'll send you a couple pictures.
It's funny because I keep saying that Cape Town is one of the most beautiful places that I've been.
It is.
You saying that Iceland is more beautiful? Now it makes me want to go.
Two different kinds of beauty.
Yeah, it depends on what you like. I love natural beauty. Cape Town is still, like I said, it's very...
Love the vineyards in Cape Town. Love the beaches in Cape Town.
Yeah, it was gorgeous.
Oh, love Table Mountain.
Yeah.
Right? We had some of the best photos from
Iceland
Table
just
Mountain.
has...
a lot of green space.
I think I like Iceland just slightly a little bit more because there were no people, right?
Right.
we were in a car.
Cape Town is a city, right?
Yeah, it's like people
Iceland
everywhere.
is completely unoccupied.
Yes. They said there's only 366,000 people in the whole country of Iceland.
And 265,000 of those people are in the main city of Reykjavik.
Right. And we had a car and we drove around. It felt like we just owned the world because there was no one around.
Yeah, there's one road that drives you throughout the whole country.
And you see waterfalls, untouched waterfalls just on the side of the road.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable to see. It looks like it's Earth. To me, look, it's the beginning of Earth when it was just starting. There were no people, nothing, no buildings, no nothing.
Yeah.
That's why I love this so much.
And we went in the summer.
Yes.
So we did not experience the cold. Yeah.
It was cool, but
Yeah, like I guess in the 50s maybe, but I'm always
like
cold.
here right now, right? Sunny, and it's like in the 50s.
So for anyone listening now dreaming of traveling, I think one of the question is, how did you finance the trip? Was it your real estate properties that were paying for it? How can someone plan for such a big adventure?
So I would say that you want to establish a budget for it. I would look at global packages that are already created by travel companies to find out how much that costs. Like a friend of mine asked me about a cruise where they were going to spend a full year traveling by boat.
Wow.
And we can't do that because we don't like cruising that much.
Yeah.
But they were going to travel the world on a cruise, and that was like $100,000. And that's not outrageous if you're going to see that many places.
But you got to eat.
But
An entire year,
because so we funded it ourselves. I want to say we should expect to spend somewhere around $75,000. And we had cash that was the result of our other property sale. Remember, I told you we sold 2 properties. One we rolled into a larger property, and then the other one we used the profits to pay for our travel, our year of travel.
And took the hit on taxes on that.
And so you guys came back, and now Rob, you're a full-time real estate investor, and
full-time real estate agent.
Agent, yes.
Oh, agent. Okay.
Yeah.
But you're also an investor.
Absolutely. We will always be investors.
Forever, But that's what we decided. If we come back, if we do this and we leave, we still have our degrees. If we got desperate and wanted to go back, but our goal was to try to, once the bills were low and everything was gone and we could take a chance. And we decided to play it safe. A lot of people don't play it as safe as us. We decided we're going to, let's try to do our own thing, try to make our own money and not have to answer to someone else all the time. If we get to this point in our lives where we can pay off all this stuff, the house, the cars, whatever, why not take a chance on yourself?
And Rob had his real estate license before he left corporate.
Yes.
So he got his real estate license and was serving as a part-time real estate agent before he left the job. So he picked that up kind of as a side hustle. And was making additional money there before he left.
I was in IT for 19 years. So I was in IT making my good money. And then I was like, you know what? I want to roll into real estate. And we wanted to buy our own properties, take out the middleman if possible. And then that's how I just got the license. And then I said, when I come back, I'm going to get out of IT and I'm going to try this new thing. I'm trying to be full-time real estate.
Now we were already real estate investors before he got his license.
Yes.
Okay. So I want to clarify that because we get DMs all the time about people trying to build wealth as a realtor.
No.
The average realtor makes about $40K a year.
It's not a lot of money.
So the money actually comes from investing in real estate. And
Yes.
if you want to be a realtor, it costs money to be a realtor.
Yes.
But it's an added bonus if you plan to invest in real estate long term. So he did that. And I thought, well, I'm going to start a travel business since we're doing all this traveling. Well, travel agents don't get paid until after the travel is finished. In 2020, there was no travel.
Yeah, we were okay
All the
with that
travel that was booked
until the pandemic
was either canceled or rescheduled. So that meant we were going to spend an entire year with no income from the travel business. So that's when we looked into trading for income as another stream. We met Terry Igioma at FinCon in 2018, but we didn't really get to know her until 2019 when we come back during our travel. We took the course, and from that point on, I became a full-time trader, and we never looked back.
So you took the course last year?
Started in January of 2020. We have a YouTube channel, and we actually started Learn, Hustle, Grow when we hit the road to travel. So we started with our travel videos.
Yeah.
Oh, girl, to try to travel the world and make YouTube videos.
Yeah, it's tough.
Could you imagine trying to do your podcast while you're in different countries?
No.
Every 4 to 7 days, we were in a new
Moving
country. And so we were trying to do the blog, create YouTube videos, edit them.
Yeah, it was stressful.
It was super stressful. And so when we got back, we started the course, and we had moved our channel back to focusing on money and personal finance. But people kept asking us how the class was going. So we were getting so many questions about that we posted our first review of the course. We started the course in January. So we didn't post our first review of the course until a couple of months later after we successfully gotten back our initial $5,000 investment. And we've posted updates on it since then. So if anybody wants to learn about the class and our experience, we are not the best traders. We have to keep reminding people that.
She's a trader. I'm just
pretty
along for the ride.
Yeah, he's a realtor. Trading is my thing, but we do the videos together. And there are some people in there really killing it. Yeah. We are making an income. So it is a valid way to make an income. Yeah. And if you want to see our story or hear our journey in that regard, just check out the Learn, Hustle, Grow YouTube channel.
Right. And so you guys call your audience the legacy builders?
That's right. We are building legacies.
That's right.
What does legacy mean to you?
I want to say legacy is the opportunity to leave something behind for future generations that helps them to continue to grow and be successful.
And so for anyone listening, interested in building a legacy for their children, grandchildren, if you had to narrow it down to a few steps, what would you advise them to do?
Everything starts with financial literacy.
Yes.
Actually, our latest videos on building generational wealth. Where would you be if you just knew and understood money and credit before you ever got that first credit card?
That would be amazing.
I mean, being able to educate future generations on how to manage money and begin investing, it is everything.
Yes.
If you can't give them anything else, give them
knowledge.
The game.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's not changing. You can sit here and complain about the environment that you're in and how it's not fair, but that's not going to make it fair.
And another thing, we got to stop leaving bills and responsibilities behind. I don't want to be old and my kids have to take care of me financially. That's a huge problem.
So that's the deal. So you get financially literate and you just save enough to take care of yourself. Right. You just get to the point where you can retire without having to worry about your kids financing that.
In the negative,
then that at least starts that next generation off at a zero balance. So that they can continue to take that money they would have spent investing in your retirement and invest in their kids' future. Everything we do to move the next generation at least one step forward, it just continues to snowball.
Yes. And even better, if we can leave them something, if we can leave them a house, if we can leave them some kind of asset instead of just the clothes on our backs and the junk in the house and the apartment. Actually, that would be amazing, right?
Well said. So I like to end the interview with a round of rapid fire questions.
Oh, rapid fire.
I don't know how it's going to work with two, but we're going to make it work.
Rob needs to answer some questions. He let me talk more than he talks.
She likes that. So
tell me about a book that changed your perspective on life.
The Millionaire Next Door. I'm reading that again right now. I love it that much. I haven't read it in a few years and I'm reading it again right now. So
what's one thing about money you wish you could tell your younger self?
Invest early, ASAP. Don't blow it. Always use the money towards investing until your 40s or something.
What's the best investment in yourself you've made so far?
Education.
Yes.
Honestly, for us
Audible.com.
we continue to make sure that we educate ourselves in every way possible. That's kind of why we call it Learn, Hustle, Grow, because everything starts with learning. But honestly, I never had a job that didn't require my bachelor's degree. People are questioning whether or not college is valid. I want to say for Black people, it's still that bachelor's degree still is a barrier of entry to get a lot of the larger jobs with larger corporations. You may be able to start with some smaller companies doing some entry-level work without a bachelor's degree and build up your experience because things are changing. Having experience does matter. However, for the companies that I worked for, a bachelor's degree was the minimum requirement to even get in the door.
Yes.
Filling the blank in 3 words or less. Money to me is
a tool.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I want our legacy to be one of a beautiful love story where we were generous with the people who loved us and where we left this world having made it a better place through the resources we've shared with others.
Rob and Reshawn, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. Please tell the Dreamers where to find you.
So we're on YouTube, Learn, Hustle, Grow. And we have an Instagram that's semi-active, Learn, Hustle, Grow. We put out videos every week on Learn, Hustle, Grow on YouTube.
And we also have a website, learnhustlegrow.com, that tells our story.
All right. Thank you both.
Thank you.
That was Reshawn and Rob Lee. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the podcast. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Dreamers podcast. You can find the episode show notes and all of the links mentioned at dreamoflegacy.com. If you liked today's episode, here's what you can do to support me and help more dreamers discover the podcast. Follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate and review the podcast to help the podcast gain more visibility. Share the podcast with your family, friends, and coworkers. And if you really enjoyed today's episode, please take a second to tag me at thedreamers.podcast on Instagram and let me know what you liked about today's episode. All right, dreamers, that's it for today. I will see you back here next week for another episode of the Dreamers podcast.
Okay, dreamers, time to build this legacy.
This podcast is for general information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax, legal, financial planning, insurance, accounting, investment, or any other kind of professional advice or services. Please consult with an appropriate tax, financial, or legal professional to receive appropriate advice based on your situation.
Sunday, Skincare Day, is one of the ways I keep my sanity in these crazy times. Jumino is an all-natural, Black-owned skincare brand carefully handcrafted by parents who could not find the proper care solutions to address their family skin problems. All Jumino products are made of organic and high-quality ingredients, meticulously chosen to give your skin the smooth results and the glow it deserves.